Hello everyone, I'm Rashmi Mangla. I'm teaching as an assistant professor in BBA department of St. Andrews Institute of Technology and Management. The subject that I'll be teaching today is e-commerce. Now this is our fourth lecture and we were already doing unit 4. This is our final lecture for unit 4. The topics that we'll be covering today are network security, types of network security, threats to network security, data encryption secret keys, types of cryptographic techniques, and encryption and decryption. So these are all the topics that are left in unit 4 which we'll be covering today. So let's begin with the first one, network security. Now network security. Network security is any activity designed to protect the usability and integrity of your network and data. So the activity which protects our usability and our integrity, that our data cannot be shared with anyone. So that is network security. It includes both hardware and software technologies. Effective network security manages access to the network. It manages that you have access to the network, but has certain terms and conditions as well. It targets a variety of threats and stops them from entering or spreading on your network. Although a variety of threats are there, it targets them and it stops them from entering your network. Network security also helps you to protect proprietary information from attack. Ultimately, it protects your reputation. So all your information is protected from any outsider attack. Maybe somebody might hack your information or any kind of attack. It protects from it, and it ultimately protects our reputation also. And not only this, network security is any activity which is designed to protect the usability and integrity of your network and data. Then it consists of the policies and practices which are adopted to prevent and monitor unauthorized access or misuse, modification or denial of a computer network and network accessible resources. Now, network security covers a variety of computer networks which can be both private and public, that are used in everyday jobs, conducting transactions and communications among businesses, between government agencies and individuals. So it covers a variety of securities. Networks can be private, such as within a company, and others which might be open to public access, can be private or public also. Now network security is involved in organizations, enterprises and other types of institutions, and it basically, what it does, it secures the network as well as protecting and overseeing operations that are being done within the organization. And the most common and simple way of protecting a network resource is by assigning it a unique name and a corresponding password. So if we assign a unique name and password to our network, we can protect it. Alright. Now not only this, network security has got various types. Let's see the types of network securities. First one is firewalls. Now firewalls can be a software also, it can be a hardware also, or it can be both. Basically what it does is, firewalls place a barrier between your trusted internal network and untrusted outside networks like the internet. At times you would have seen, when you try to open a browser, it says that it is an untrusted outside network, and it tells you to go to the privacy settings, and in the privacy settings it is, by default it is disallowed that any kind of unsecure apps, any kind of unsecure sites will not be opened in your browser. It's automatically disallowed at times in the settings itself. So it leads you to the privacy page where only if you allow, then only you can have an access to such sites, otherwise you cannot have. So just like similar to that, firewalls also, they place a barrier between your trusted internal network and untrusted outside networks like the internet. A set of defined rules are employed to block or allow traffic. A firewall can be, as I told you, it can be a software also, it can be a hardware also, or it can be both. The FreeWire firewall efficiently manages traffic on your PC, monitor or in and out connections, and secures all the connections when you are online. The next type of network security is email security. Now, email gateways are the number one threat vector for a security breach. Attackers, what they do is they use personal information and social engineering tactics to build sophisticated phishing campaigns to deceive recipients so that they can cheat on the recipients and send them to sites serving up malware. At times you would have seen, you get some kind of fake emails, as in which depict that you have won some contest, or maybe you have won certain amount of money, but and there is a link written away that you have to click on that link, and if you go and click on that link, they take you to a fake page. So that is what happens. The phishing campaigns or the social engineering tactics, what they do is they deceive the recipient and send them to sites which serve up malware. An email security application, what it does is it blocks incoming attacks and controls the outbound messages also to prevent the loss of sensitive data. Then next one is antivirus and anti-malware software. Now this software is used for protecting against malware, which might include spyware, ransomware, trojans, worms and viruses. So all these are a part of malware. Now malware can also become very dangerous. It can become very dangerous as it can affect a network. It might affect a network and then remain calm for days or even weeks. So basically what it does is this software handles this threat. Which kind of threat? The threat which malware causes, by scanning from malware entry and regularly tracks files afterwards in order to detect anomalies, remove malware and fix damage. So this software, it scans all the malware entry. Whenever you try to download any file, it scans it first and regularly keeps a track of the files also, in order so that it can detect any anomalies if there are there, and you can remove the malware and fix the damage. The next one is network segmentation. Software defined segmentation places network traffic into varied classifications and makes enforcing security policies a lot easier. So the security policies are made easier. How? By defining segmentation. Software defined segmentation, it places network traffic into varied classification. The traffic is classified into different sectors and makes enforcing security policies. New policies are made so that they can be made easier. The classifications are ideally based on endpoint identity, not just IP addresses. All the classifications are based on endpoint identity and not only on the IP address. Rights can be accessed. You can access the right based on the location, role and more, so that the right people get the correct level of access and suspicious devices are thus contained and remediated. Then next one is application security. Now any software that you use, your business needs to be protected. Whether your IT staff builds it or whether you have actually bought it from somewhere, but all the software needs to be protected. Now unfortunately, any application may contain some or the other vulnerabilities or some or the other holes, which the attackers can use to infiltrate your network, which they can use to take up your network. So application security, what it does is encompasses the hardware, software and processes you use to close those holes. So it basically it has all the hardware and software and it has all the processes that can be used to close those holes, that can be used to avoid those vulnerabilities to attackers. Then next one is access control. Now not every user should have access to your network. You cannot give your network access to any of the users. To keep out potential attackers, you need to recognize each user and each device, so that the attackers can be kept out. You have to recognize every user and every device. Then you can enforce your security policies. You can book non-complaint endpoints also. How? Or you can only give them limited access. So this whole process is network access control. You need to have access and you need to have control over your network. Then data loss prevention, DLP. Organizations should guarantee that the staff does not send sensitive information outside the network. You are working in for example, you are working in an organization and you are working at a quite higher post. So major in and outs of the organization, but can you share those in and outs with somebody from outside? No. So organization should guarantee that their staff should not send sensitive information outside the network. They should thus use DLP, data loss prevention, that the data should not be lost. These technologies, network securities measures that prevent people from uploading, forwarding, or even printing vital information in an unsafe manner. So by using these technologies, you can prevent the people from uploading or forwarding or even printing the information. Then next one is mobile device security. Now mobile devices and apps are increasingly being targeted by cyber criminals. We know, isn't it? At times we see that somebody says that my account has been hacked, my credit card has been blocked by somebody. So mobile devices and apps are increasingly targeted. They are easily very targeted by these cyber criminals. 90% of IT organizations could very soon support corporate applications on personal mobile devices. And we have already seen 90% of IT organizations, they support all the corporate applications on the mobile devices. So there is indeed the necessity for you to control which devices can access your network. So it is very important for you to have a control on the devices who can access your network. And it is also necessary to configure their connections in order to keep network traffic private. Then last one is wireless security. Now the mobile office movement is presently gaining momentum. As we know, mobile office is gaining a lot of momentum along with wireless networks and access points. However, these wireless networks, they are not as secure as wired ones are. And this makes way for hackers to enter because it is not very much secure. When security is less, hackers can easily enter. So it is thus essential for the wireless security to be strong. Then it should be noted that without stringent security measures, installing a wireless LAN could be like placing Ethernet ports everywhere. That means if you do not have any, you do not have stringent, you do not have strict security measures, then you are more likely to invite the hackers. So everything needs to be taken care of. Now these were all the types of network security. Now there are a lot of threats to network security. Let's see them one by one. First one is distributive denial of service attack. Now this is the most common and the obvious type of DDoS attack occurs when an attacker floods a network with useless information. When, for example, when you type a URL into your browser, you are sending a request to that site's computer server to view the page. You entered a URL. So you are sending a request to that particular site's computer server that you want to view the page. The server will only process, it can only process a certain number of requests at once. Maybe if, many people are requesting. So at times it does not process the request in one go. If an attacker overloads the server with request, if an attacker constantly keeps on, sending request for going on to that page, and when he overloads it with the request, it can't process yours. And the flood of incoming messages to the target system, that flood, that constantly the messages are going to the target system, it essentially forces it to shut down, thereby denying access to legitimate users. And when there is a lot of flooding of the request for the page, for opening the page, so when there are a lot of incoming messages, so ultimately it gets shut down and thereby it denies the access to all the the legitimate users also. Then second threat to network security is hacking. Now hacking is a term that is used to describe actions taken by someone to gain unauthorized access to a computer. We know when somebody tries to take unauthorized, that you have not given the authority, but still your computer is being accessed by someone else. So that is hacking. Now the availability of information online on the tools, techniques and malware makes it easier for even non-technical people to undertake malicious activities. Because the information is available online on all the tools and techniques and malware, so it makes it easier for the non-tech people also that they can undertake all these activities. And the process by which cyber criminals gain access to your computer, this is the whole process, hacking. Then the next threat is malware. Malware is again one of the more common ways to infiltrate or damage your computer. Malicious software that infects your computer, such as computer virus, worms, Trojan horses, spyware, and adware. These are all malicious softwares that can infect your computer. Next is phishing. Now, phishing is used mostly often by cyber criminals. They use this method because it's easy to execute. This method is very easy to execute and can produce the results they are looking for with very little effort. That means by giving in very little effort, the results can be easily seen. Fake emails, text messages, and websites created to look like they are from authentic companies. There are many fake emails that we get, there are many text messages, there are many websites that are created and that they look like the authentic ones only. They're sent by criminals to steal personal and financial information from you, and this is also known as spoofing, that we'll study further. At times you would have, for example, seen, when you try to download an application from software, it asks for a lot of permission from you, that it asks you to allow, it allows the permission to have an access to your contacts, to have an access to all your messages, to have access to your photos. So that is how your personal information can be leaked. Then next one is spam. Spam is one of the more common methods of both sending information out and collecting it. It's a common method where we send and collect the information from unsuspecting people. The mass distribution of unsolicited messages, advertising, when we have a mass distribution of all such messages, of all such advertising, which can be easily found on the internet through things like social networking sites, company websites, and personal blogs. So all that comes under spam, where the information is sent and it is collected from unsuspecting people. Then the next one is spoofing. It is kind of alternatively used for phishing, which we just studied. This technique is often used as conjunction with phishing, is an attempt to steal your information. A website or email address that is created to look like it comes from a legitimate source. It might look that it is coming from a genuine source, but an email address may even include your own name. It might include the whole own name or the name of someone you know, making it difficult to discern whether or not the sender is real, which makes it difficult for you to, make out that the sender is actually real or he is fake. So it appears to be so real. Then last one is viruses. Most people have heard of computer viruses, but not many know exactly what they are and what they do. Many people have heard about computer viruses, but they do not know exactly what the virus is and exactly what it does. So malicious computer programs that are often sent as an email attachment or a download with the intent of infecting your computer, as well as the computers of everyone in the contact list. Just visiting a site can start an automatic download of a virus. At times you would have seen, for example, when you try to download a song from some website, sometimes what it happens is, if you by chance open a fake link, you click on the link and it ultimately takes you to a page of network threat or takes you to a page of virus, and your phone starts vibrating. If you would have observed, these kind of things happen. So by just visiting a site only, you can have automatic download of a virus done. So these are all the threats to network security. Now we'll see a new topic, that is data encryption secret keys, which has cryptography, encryption, and decryption. Now when we talk about cryptography is associated with the process of converting ordinary plain text into unintelligible text and vice versa. ordinary plain text is converted into unintelligible text, and unintelligible one is converted to plain. It is a method of storing and transmitting data. You are storing the data and transmitting it in a particular form, so that only those for whom it is intended, so that the person for whom you have sent the data, only they can read and process it. Now cryptography, what it does is, it not only protects data from theft or alteration, but can also be used for user authentication. Just to know that the user is authenticated, for that also you can use cryptography. At times you would have seen that when you try to make a call from WhatsApp, or you try to make a video call, at the top it is written end to end encrypted. Now that means that the whatever conversation you're having, that is safe, that is only meant for the specific user to whom you are communicating, and it cannot be sent to any other person. So a little bit that is what we are trying to say over here. Now modern cryptography concerns with, there are many kinds of concerns that it has: confidentiality, integrity, non-repudiation, and authentication. Confidentiality, information cannot be understood by anyone. Then integrity, information cannot be altered, information cannot be changed. Non-repudiation, sender cannot deny his or her intentions in transmission of the information at a later stage. Then authentication, sender and receiver can confirm each, they both can confirm, so that the authentication is possible. Now cryptography is used in many applications like banking, transaction, card, computer passwords, and e-commerce transactions. There are mainly 3 types of cryptographic techniques or secret keys that we use in general. Let's see them. First one is symmetric key cryptography. Now in symmetric key cryptography, both the sender and receiver share a single key. They both share a single key. The sender uses this key to encrypt plain text and send the cipher text to the receiver. He encrypts the plain text, it is converted into computer language, and the cipher text is received by the receiver. On the other hand, the receiver applies the same key. It applies the same key to do what? It decrypts the message. The cipher text is now decrypted, and it is again recovered to plain text. And why it is recovered to plain text? So that the other person to whom we have sent the data, he can have an access to it. If it is not decrypted, you will not be able to understand. Then second step is public key cryptography. This is the most public key cryptography. It is the most revolutionary concept. In public key cryptography, there are 2 related keys, public and private, which are used. Public key may be freely distributed, while it is paired, private key remains a secret. The public key is used for encryption, and for decryption private key is used. So we use for encryption public key, and for decryption we use private key. Then we have hash functions. Now no key is used in this algorithm. A fixed length hash value is computed as per the plain text, that makes it impossible for contents of the plain text to be recovered. Now hash functions are also used by many operating systems to encrypt the password. We can use these functions for password encryption. Now the last topics are encryption and decryption. Let's see it one by one. Encryption. Now encryption is the process, as we saw upwards also, encryption is the process of transforming information so it is unintelligible to anyone but the intended recipient. So it is unintelligible, that we cannot tell it to anyone. Then encryption is a process in which a sender converts the original information. It is a process where the sender converts the original information to another form and send the results unintelligibly message out over the network. Now the sender requires an encryption algorithm and a key. Why? To transform the plain text, that is the original message, into a cipher text, encrypted message. It's also known as enciphering. Alright, a plain text is converted to a computer language text, which is The whole process is called enciphering, or we also call it as encrypted message, the message which has been converted. Then decryption. Decryption is the process of transforming encrypted information so that it is intelligible again. Now here again we transform from the encrypted form to decrypted form. Now, a cryptographic algorithm, which is also called as cipher, is a mathematical function which is used for encryption or decryption. And in most cases, these two functions are kind of employed, one for encryption and the other for decryption. And not only this, decryption, what it does is it inverts the encryption process in order to convert back message to its real form. As I told you above also, it just converts the message back to its real form in the real language. The receiver uses a decryption algorithm and a key to transform the cipher text back to original plain text. It is also known as deciphering. Right? So that was all that we had for Unit 4. Now let's see some questions based on these concepts. What do you mean by network security? Explain the types of network securities. What are the threats to network security? What is cryptography? What are the techniques of cryptography? What do you understand by encryption and decryption? Stay tuned for the upcoming videos of Unit 1 now. Thank you.